The Untouchables is an American crime film directed by Brian De Palma that hit theaters in 1987. The movie is based on the book of the same name, released 30 years earlier, that deals with the experiences of Elliot Ness, a federal agent with the Bureau of Prohibition as he fights bootleggers in Chicago in the 1920s and 30s. Ness handpicked a few agents to help him out, and they were eventually nicknamed the Untouchables. The lines of fact and fiction are often blurred when it comes to Ness, but one thing is for certain, he did not look like Kevin Costner. That's right, Kevin Costner portrays Ness in the movie and stars alongside Robert De Niro and Sean Connery, while Ennio Morricone scores the soundtrack. This film was destined to be nominated for and win a boatload of awards, and it did. But we're not here to talk about the movie. As was common in this era, with great cinematic acclaim, comes a rough-around-the-edges game adaptation. Video game adaptations of The Untouchables were first released on 8-bit computers nearly 3 years after the movie. The NES version didn't come out until 1991. And the Super Nintendo version didn't hit shelves until 1994, almost 7 years after the movie was relevant. With all that time to think up a good game for the movie, let's see what they came up with for The Untouchables on the NES. Let's address the big issue out the gate. This is largely a gallery shooter that does not use the light gun. All you do in this game is shoot gangsters as Elliot Ness with a gun, and the system had a big gun packaged with it. At least for many folks it did. And Ocean said, how about nah? Let's stick to thumb stuff. Thumb stuff has worked for all our other movie adaptations. Well, first of all, Ocean, no, it hasn't. And even more bewildering, the Super Nintendo version that came out 3 years later didn't use the Super Scope. So anyway, they decided not to use the light gun and instead forced players to abuse their left thumb by pushing a cursor across the screen that sometimes feels like it weighs 30 pounds and is being dragged through mud. I'm getting upset. Let's take a step back. Here you control not only Elliot Ness, but his whole elite squad of crime busters. You always start as Ness, and you can see which gangbuster you are in the lower right, and can switch those out by pressing select when you're behind cover. Think of it a little like the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game on the NES. You want to preserve the health of your gang by switching them out before they go down. The good news here is that members of the squad you're not using slowly rebuild their health behind the scenes. Again, the game is a gallery shooter at heart. You're moving your cursor around the screen shooting mob guys, and each one takes a couple of shots to kill. It's nearly impossible to make it from one side of the screen to the other in time to kill all the dudes, so you'll need to either duck behind cover or just eat their bullets. And that's fine to do in the earlier stages, but toward the end of the game, life bars become more important to preserve and enemy waves feel endless. After each stage, win or lose, you'll see a newspaper headline with a summary of your activity. Even if you succeed, you probably still let 25 guys get away, and the newspaper headline reads, Elliot Ness wins fight with mob. Oh, I did? Sweet. But one weird thing here is, if you do get Elliot Ness killed, and you switch to one of your other agents and manage to beat the stage, you still get a game over. You have to keep Ness alive until the end of the stage, no matter what. The rest of the guys are expendable, and they revive for each new stage they can be used in. So, yeah, that's weird, but I guess not getting an immediate game over when Ness goes down helps you practice? Silver linings. For the alley shooting stages, I tried to keep my cursor mid-screen and at about the same height, so I didn't have to do a lot of moving other than left and right. The game is terribly tedious, and hitboxes are picky, so you need to be pretty accurate. Headshots are not guarantees. You need to think of these bad guys as the hitboxes they are and aim toward their middle to make sure you're shooting pure bad dude and nothing else. The stages do vary though, it's not all shooting stuff with a cursor. The third stage is a side-scrolling platform level where you have to bop around in a small warehouse and shoot an unending wave of mob members while on the lookout for ones wearing a special color of hat. Those guys drop evidence when you shoot them. This level feels and controls like every other platformer from Ocean. Not great. Stiff to control and slippery to handle. Kinda like the Ocean itself, I guess. But if this game weren't slippery to handle, it wouldn't be that untouchable now, would it? Yeah, anyway, then there's this level, where Ness is on his belly, and he is rolling and rolling all around while shooting bad guys as they pop out from behind trucks. Ness needs to shoot the bottles of alcohol as they appear. You have to shoot them all within the time limit, and they only show up one at a time, so if you are on one end and shoot a bottle, and the next one pops up clear on the other side, you gotta roll way over there while being endlessly fired upon. If we stop and see this for what it is, it's hilarious. Imagine a guy rolling on the ground for 3 straight minutes while goons continuously miss while shooting at him. It's an SNL skit. Good news here if you were wondering, there are infinite continues, and the levels are short albeit tedious, but punishment for dying isn't too great. At some point though, you'll be thankful for those tedious shooter levels that accelerate your timetable for carpal tunnel by 10 years because some of the other stages, like the side-scrolling warehouse stage or this stage in the train station where you have to protect a baby carriage from toppling over at all costs, are janky nightmares. This might be one of the worst things I've had to do in a video game. If the baby carriage hits anything on the way down the stairs, it topples and game over. You can't let it hit anything. All the while, mob guys are shooting at you from all directions, so you have to mind where the carriage is going while wiping them out. There's really no way to survive this on the first go. You have to know where the steps lead because there are some dead ends and no turning back. If you wind up in a corner, you're screwed. No one puts baby in a corner. This is a one-way baby carriage. The only thing more fun than this section of the game would be to do this in real life. Chase a baby carriage down the stairs of a train station while being fired upon by bootleggers in fancy hats. Try it sometime. Let me know what you think. The Untouchables is one of those strange ones where I have very few good things to say about it, but it's somehow still addictive to play. I think it's the shorter levels, infinite continues, and the high-action playstyle that does it. You're always moving, dodging, or shooting something, and the game does have a variety of level types to keep it fresh, although a few of them are just flat-out cruel, like the baby carriage one. As far as movie adaptations go, you can identify the main threads of the movie here, so there's that. The soundtrack here is mostly forgettable. It's no Ennio Morricone, but each stage has its own theme at least. If you feel like being addicted to a mildly frustrating game for an hour or so, give the Untouchables a try. The Super Nintendo version uses a similar recipe and has all the obvious upgrades in terms of sights and sounds. The levels appear very different, but the game does switch between gallery shooter to side-scrolling platformer to top-down action like the NES version. The game is said to have released when it did to coincide with the lesser-known TV series of the same name that ran for 2 seasons in 1993 and 94. Well, that's going to do it for today's game. As always, when you can't run for cover, just stop, drop, and roll for a while. Thanks for watching.